Welcome back to the War Room. This is a War Room short. I am your host, Shooter Hunt, joined by the great Ian Smith today. Ian, who's done such a wonderful job coming from Florida. He's now locking things down all over Georgia. I don't know if there was a single high school game that this guy missed all of last year. Crushed it all summer. Anything you need to know coming out of the Peach State. Ian, welcome to the show.
Super stoked to be here, Scherer. Thanks for finally having me. I've been a loyal watcher here to the War Room, so it fires me up to finally be on.
Well, you're in the hot seat today because you have so much intel coming out of Lake Point is the mecca of youth baseball, amateur baseball especially. And wanted to talk to you a lot about the draft process, these 2025 draft, some of the Georgia guys who have shined this fall, but especially some guys from out of state who you got a chance to see. But let's start off with these Georgia guys diving right in. And there's a couple top 100 dudes who were in attendance at the Fall World Series there. Daniel Pierce, a shortstop from Mill Creek, and Josh Gibbs, a shortstop from Forsyth Central. Two guys who are top 100 draft prospects, had really good summers, interesting profiles as right infielders. Let's start with Pierce first, because you had some great things to say about him. What is the prospect status of him? What are the tools like? What did he show this fall for you?
Yeah, I mean, not to be bullish, starting back in the spring, my first time seeing Pierce, I thought the glove stood out as much as anything that I've seen in the spring compared to the 2025 class in general. I thought it's a chance to be a 60 glove at shortstop long term, and that's carried over into the summer and now into the fall. There's a lot of moving parts at the plate, but he sinks up really well and he finds the barrel consistently. He hits it hard to opposite field. He hits it hard to the pull side. This past week at upper class, he took a ball opposite field, about 350, 96 off the backside, which is something you just don't see often. The sun beating down in his face, couldn't see the ball, and still found the barrel. He's somebody I think has one of the highest upsides in the class for the 2025 bats here in Georgia. Of course, there's Ty Peoples at the top, the number one outfielder in the country, but I think Pierce has the potential to move in line to be the next guy in that list as we look at the next line of guys for draft prospects here in Georgia.
That's some high praise for Pierce. And it's one of those guys with that right profile. He's sticking at shortstop, a little bit old, not too old for the class.
Yeah.
But the tools have always shined in game, right? And we have that track record for 2+ years where you've been beating on my door saying, hey, this Pierce kid can play. The more you see him, the more you're going to like him. I talked with DJ Savilic when he went to see at East Coast Pro. Keep an eye on this kid. It's really exciting to see that he's continued that, coming to the upper class World Series, doing great things. But what about Josh Gibbs, who I would call him kind of the ninja. He's kind of got that Taekwondo background, but he goes out there. My man is never scared. What did you see from him last week?
And never off the barrel. I don't think anything that Josh hits is under 95. He might hit into the ground, he might hit a line drive to the center fielder, but it's 95 plus to 100 every time off the bat. Another guy with a ton of moving parts at the plate, but I don't understand it sometimes, but sinks up extremely well, creates a ton of force from the ground up, uses his lower half extremely well, manipulates the barrel through the zone extremely well as well, can match plane, can sit on the fastball, can pick up spin. It's just been a complete profile. There has been, every time you watch him, you don't think he's going to hit, and he hits every single time. I'm not saying that as a bad thing, but it's just the track record speaks for himself. He's just a guy who continues to hit time and time again.
And it's interesting because you come from your Florida roots, right? So you see top prospects in the country, Florida versus Georgia. They're always competing with each other. So this is serious high praise coming from you for a guy like Josh Gibbs, who you've followed for some time now.
And I think the position flexibility for Josh long-term is going to be huge for him. Right now, sitting at short where the arm strength plays, I think he's not even 92 off the mound. I think he can play at second base as well, where the actions are well. He can move right. He can move laterally, but also I think he can be a guy who you can move to center field at the next level. He has 6'6" speed, can move laterally, like I just mentioned. The arm strength is there. He has the foot speed. He has the closing speed. I think that's a guy with that athleticism and that frame at 5'11", 175 pounds that can be an impact player in the center field if that's something that is in his future.
Well, it seems like every time you want to doubt, or we want to doubt Josh Gibbs, he steps to the plate and proves us wrong. So he'll continue doing that. Excited to see it. Now you have another guy on here who is very intriguing. And the state of Georgia, as you know, last year, kind of a down year from the prep side. All those area scouts are itching to find some guys. What about Cole Johnson, an outfielder from Oconee?
Cole Johnson's a guy that I guess you can put into that sleeper category right now, but he's somebody who's consistently hit for us the last 2 years since I've been coming up to Georgia last summer before I even had the job. He's somebody who stood out playing for Divine Baseball. He's a left-handed outfielder who can play center field. The bat to ball is impressive. He started to show us some power over the last six to 12 months. Now he's starting to pull the ball well. He's another guy who's another 6'6" runner, can stick in center field. And like I mentioned, the bat to ball is really what stands out. He shows an impressive approach every time he steps in the box. He has pitch recognition, and he can match playing, like I mentioned with Josh Gibbs as well. He's another guy who just really figures it out to play, never looks overmatched, and continues to find the barrel.
I mean, those true center fielders, you're buying that upside. Always excited to find some guys out of Georgia who are going to get better. So Cole Johnson's one we'll definitely be following next spring. Let's shift over to some of the arms, right? We got to see some of these guys. You have a note down. All these guys are going to be 95 plus. And it seems like everybody's throwing harder and harder. So there's a trio of guys I'd love for you to talk about, starting with Ben Martin from Alatoona, just down the street from you there at Lake Point.
Ben Martin's going to be the hardest thrower in the state of Georgia in this next spring. I saw him this past weekend up to 96. It's electric out of the hand. It's some of the best arm speed we have in the state. It's over the top, kind of a higher 3/4 slot. He fills it up with some run and a little bit of carry to it. Really fills it up to both sides of the plate. Can be effectively wild as he mixes in kind of a harder gyro slider at 82, 84. But the fastball's the bread and butter. I think he's going to be a premier bullpen arm for the Vols next year at Tennessee commit, if I didn't mention that as well. Formerly from Mercer, flipped to Tennessee. Type of guy who's going to move into that Vols bullpen to be another 100 plus arm for that team in the future. Just that type of body, 6'4", 220, really just commands a presence on the mound, extremely aggressive, can fill it up. It's going to blow it by you. Not afraid to throw that fastball. And like I mentioned, up to 96 already this fall. And I think there's going to be more velo to come in the spring.
For sure. I expect some of those teams that really value those high slots, those steeper vertical approach with that backspin to be attacking those Ben Martin data sets in the Lake Point TrackMan. What about KJ Hart, who's a name that we've known for years now?
Oh,
what has he done this fall?
KJ Hart's been just been one of my favorite follows throughout the year. He's a guy who's fairly new to pitching. He's been pitching full time for a little over a year now, and the strides he's made in the last, we'll say, 6 months have been huge. He's now sitting 91, 93, grabbing fours almost every outing. He's mixing in a slider that he can really manipulate at 81, 83, where he can mix in some gyro movement, or he can add sweep to it for some swing and miss. Can really throw it to left or righties. He started to mix in a little bit of a changeup now, the left-handed bats that we haven't seen very often. These last 2 outings that I've seen him, he's been throwing at low 80s with a little bit of run to it. And if you can add that to a pitch mix as a JUCO can make Northwest Florida, I think he's a guy who can command a ton of attention heading into the spring. If he can throw strikes, be a starter for this River Ridge team who's going to be a quality ball club here in the state of Georgia this next spring.
Ooh, I could see Ian Smith getting out a bunch of those starts for KJ Hart.
But yeah.
We took you out of Florida, but you couldn't stay away. Dylan Stiltner, a right-handed pitcher from Calvary Christian, Chipola commit. It looks like he's got a nice arsenal to work with.
Another one, Dylan Stiltner has been a guy who's been blowing up pretty frequently this spring. As we talked about with Georgia being a down year this year, guys are trying to find arms. Last year it was very hit or miss with arms. We had a huge couple guys at the top with Conrad Case and an 8th rounder for the Red Sox, and Jackson Barbary, who's now in the rotation at the University of Florida, were 95 plus arms. We haven't really had that, and they're trying to find that guys this year. So Dylan Stiltner is a guy who's free and easy at 91, 93. He's been mixing kind of a budding slider that's been growing the last 2 months, but he really throws it hard up to 85. I've seen it up to 87 as well. It kind of buries it. That's a pitch that I think can make a ton of strides over this offseason and come into the spring and really blow scouts away if he can add that to his arsenal with a sinker slider combo. And that's something I love with my guy Dylan Jordan here, if we're talking about Florida guys last year.
Yeah.
So kind of a similar profile with Stiltner, same kind of body. Stiltner's a little bit leaner, but if he can mix in a sinker slider to where you can get guys out with both, I think that'll be huge for his profile next spring.
I'm sure he'll be in the lab all winter. Now, Ian, we'll let you talk about a lot of these Georgia guys. What about some of the out of state? Now, there's 2 names here, and I'm a huge fan of the DMV area, right? There's been so much talent coming out of there. You're talking about James Triantos, Jackson Merrill, especially hype driven this year, probably rookie of the year, going to have a great playoffs there for the Padres. So going to that DMV, you had a couple names that come down who were kind of buzzworthy after the weekend, but Will Hack, a 2025 outfielder from Calvert Hall, really talented program. Up there in Maryland, James Madison commit, but he's 6'5" runner, 92 from the outfield, 6'3", 190. What did you see out of him at the plate that you liked?
Yeah, I mean, this was a tool shed. I mean, talking about at the plate, it's a really compact swing for the frame. 6'4", 190. It's gonna get long if you see that at the plate. He sinks up really well, keeps his hands inside, can get the barrel through the zone with a ton of intent. Caught the barrel to right field, right center, and left center for extra bases. 95 off the bat on both. 99 to to the pull side. I think the body can translate really well to the pro level. I think he's continued to get better at the plate. There was a little bit of swing and miss with breaking stuff, but was able to figure that out and lock in later in at bats and find the barrel hunting, shortening up, and starting to make adjustments in bat, which you love to see, especially in the fall season when you're seeing different pitching in every outing.
And what about his teammate at Calvert, Travis Pites, a shortstop committed to GW, 6'4", 190. That's a big shortstop.
And really looked the part at short. Move well to his right, move well to his left, can make plays in the hole. The arm strength was there. It never looked out of place. You see a guy that size at short, and you're like, oh man, he's not going to move. The foot speed was there. Could really have the flexibility in the lower half, and just never made a play that looked difficult for him. So that was something that really stood out for me. And at the plate, it was even more impressive. Another guy at 6'4", 190, a little bit longer, but gets the barrel through the zone, creates a ton of length, finds the barrel consistently. I think he was 6 for 8 on the week. Everything pull side, went backside when he had to later in the count, shortened up with 2 strikes, really showed a complete profile while finding the barrel consistently. It's a lot of line drives, doesn't get a ton of carry on the bat, but just continues to just hit the ball hard and play situational baseball. I think he came through with 5 RBIs on 6 hits. So it was huge. Every time he was up there, you knew there was going to be a hit coming. And it was just impressive to see. As a George Washington commit, I think he's a guy who can fly under the radar heading into the spring. But with that team at Calvert Hall with Hack, I think that's going to be impressive to watch coming up.
Very, very interesting coming out there on Maryland. I might have to go down there to the DC area, not just for ABCA, but head back for the spring. What about, there's a kid, Colton Schwarz, Jupiter High School in Florida. He's a Gator commit. We've liked internally talking with Rocco and Caden, just the bat, he can really hit. What did you see from him over the weekend? But especially, how does he compare to Pearson Gibbs?
I think it was the first time seeing Colton Schwarz, guy I didn't know the name, obviously, which is my fault. The younger brother of a Gator legend and JJ Schwartz as well. So got the bloodlines right there. He's a guy who kind of stood out. It's a physical body at 6'2", about 200 pounds. Moved well again. Another guy, big body at short. You're expecting some heaviness. Didn't see it there. Moved well. Made plays in the hole. Showed flexibility. Really did things well. Didn't have a ton of tough plays to make at short, but showed what he needed to show. At the plate, the hands were extremely strong. That was something that really stood out to me. Okay. Comparing him to Gibbs, who creates a ton of force in the ground up, Schwartz could just make it happen with his hands and with his strength in the wrist. He could manipulate the barrel through the zone, can really leverage it to the pull side, caught a barrel, a no doubt home run to the pull side. I think it was 95 off the bat, 360.
Yeah.
Really could find the barrels to left center and right center as well. Never looked outmatched. Well, like I said, I've mentioned leverage a lot this episode, but it's something that really stands out to me. If you can leverage the barrel and show power in your hands, it's something that stands out, especially with wood bats here in the fall. These guys have played 100+ games this year, so to really still be able to manipulate a wood bat like this as a high school bat is huge for me.
Yeah, to have those bloodlines, JJ Schwartz's little brother, he's in Jupiter, plenty of scouts going to be all around. He's committed to Florida. I'm excited to see what he has. I'm going to be sure to get down to see him in February to kick off the season. But wrap us up with a guy who is one of my favorite hitters in the class. And I would call him a sleeper only because of the positional profile, right, corner guy who's just going to hit, right? But Nathan Eisfelder from Tennessee, I would let you know right before we got on the show that I believe he's transferred now to IMG, which IMG's done such a great job with the guys with those profiles. I think back to a guy like Tommy White, those right guys where, where is he going to play? It doesn't matter. He's going to hit in the middle of the order. Yeah. What did Eisfelder do for you at the upper class?
Well, he barreled everything, and that's every look that I've seen with Nathan there for the last year plus. He hunts fastballs early in the count. He can barrel balls to all fields. It's all fields power. He can really get into it. The barrel just snaps through the zone with authority every time. It's plus bat speed right now. It's a physical 6'2", 210-pound frame that he uses his entire frame without selling out well. Like I mentioned, he can sit on the breaking ball early. He can sit on the fastball early. He's always hunting. I've never seen him not be on the barrel. I've seen it 102 plus. I've seen it 97 backside. There's been a lot. A right corner outfielder is something that you don't really love the profile, but again, he's going to hit for power. He's going to hit for average. He gets on base, and there's athleticism there that's going to make him stick with plus arm strength right now, and a sneaky foot speed. I don't think he's going to be a guy who you're going to feel like a liability in the corner outfield long term, and that bat's going to continue to carry the profile.
Yeah, the track record is really grown for him to the point where it's going to be a lot easier for area guys to head into their directors, their special assistants, and say, this guy is going to hit, because that's all he's done. The one thing that I love about Felder is that he's out there to get hits at all times. It doesn't matter if it's a 10-0 game, he goes out to get hits, which will only help drive him in professional baseball. When you have to go in, day out, we got heat, you still got to get hits. He's going to be able to do it. Well, Smitty, really pumped to have you on here. We will be sure to get you in probably at the end of the fall, start of the spring, definitely before the draft next year, because, hey, it won't be 2 years in a row in Georgia. They're going to have a lot of guys coming off the board. So Ian Smith from Georgia, everything in the Southeast, nationwide. He's all over the draft. He's all over everything. He's got his 2028 crew coming out of Georgia real soon. Smitty, thanks. Until next time, this has been The War Room.